Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
Thank you for joining us this evening, Unity family. I'm so glad we can connect with you this way and at this time. Now, we would love to know about how you're feeling about returning to the pyramid. We're talking about coming back to be together in this space in June. Will you put in the comments we'd just like to know about if you are thinking that you would want to be joining us in June. We're kind of going to take a test, see how you're feeling. You may be eager to come all in here. You may be like, no, I'm hanging back. We just want to hear from you. So if you'll just put that in the comments, that'll help Karen and I to see what you're up to, because we love you and we want to make the right decisions for you, because this service is all about you, and you're in our hearts at this time. And that's why we are studying Pema Chodron's book, When Things Fall Apart, perfect timing for what's going on now. And my message tonight is it's never too late to love yourself. Yes, even with all the stressful thoughts that have been running through your mind, with all the things you have to negotiate that you never had to think of before you leave the house. Do I have my hand sanitizer, my mask, gloves, did I wipe down my car? All kinds of things that are added on that just add up to some extra concerns, anxieties, and questions with the uncertainty of this experience that no one has answers to. Pandemic, we're in a pandemic, people are quarantined, and emotions are running high. Stress is running high for many people, and so there's just this vigilance that I feel that many of us are carrying, of wanting to know what to do. Karen and I wanting to know when should we invite you back into the pyramid for service. There's questions, and we want to make those wise, heart-centered, guided choices. When we bring spiritual practice to these real life, and we're always bringing our spiritual practice to our real life situations. It's not just put an affirmation on it or put a smile on it or pretend everything's okay when it isn't. And this is such a long time situation that we're experiencing, and some of the energy that I feel around it kind of takes me into the experience that I had on September 11th, 2001, that this is like so many, and it just keeps going on. But that day that it happened was an interesting day. I had been living in New York. I actually was working at Deutsche Bank, which is the bank that's right across the street from the World Trade Center, and I would take the subway in to the World Trade Center, the lower level, and come up and go temp there. I was a temp when I was auditioning, and that was in November, and then this September 11th happened that following September. And so when it happened, it was like, wow, that's where I was just actually working, living there. And what was interesting about that day is I saw the news, and I woke up to the news, actually, and that morning I had to perform in a cabaret, and I had to sing the trolley song. So this huge tragedy happens in New York, and I'm like, how am I going to sing the trolley song? And it was a show I had done that summer, and here I am, you're an actor, you act, right? You know how to put it on and do it when you need to. So even in the midst of this shock and horror, I get on stage and I'm like, clang, clang, clang went the trolley, ding, ding, ding went the bell, and I'm giving it my all. And afterwards I feel like, there's something not right about that, singing that. And not that it's not right to sing happy songs when dark times, but that I hadn't had a chance to process my feelings. I felt like I was putting a mask over all of that I just had taken in and not even understood how, where things were continuing to unfold that morning. And I bring that up because spiritual practice is about honoring our process, honoring our feelings, not just putting a happy face onto a tragedy. You know, some people are having Zoom fatigue, so many things online, and sometimes I feel like, I had a kind of a hard couple of days, was really tired, and it just seems like nowadays when I'm not feeling well, I go on the computer and I go, do I have symptoms? I need to know, what are my symptoms? Is this something I need to not go to? I need to be concerned about the people in my home, the people I work with, no matter what. I look up the symptoms, no fever and not anything like that. I was feeling really fatigued, and I kind of felt like it just was my computer, my speakers blew on my computer. I was having problems with the webcam, and it was just like the last thing of a lot of things. And I was just wiped. And I had to think to myself yesterday, I'm like, yeah, I want to work on my talk. I want to be prepared. There's things I need to do, emails I need to answer. And what is the most gentle, loving thing I could do to myself was to rest. I needed to rest. And so I just took time. I rested, went to bed early. I got a lot of rest. I feel so much better today. I'm grateful because, I thought, all right, well, if I'm not feeling better tomorrow, I'm concerned, but I was feeling a lot better. I really needed that. And, in this experience, there's no perfect way to do it, and it just seems like for all of us, we live in a culture where our images are out there, right? Especially social media and just the way that we put our lives out there. And we get so concerned about the outer appearance, the personality, managing the self-image, and how things are seen and said. Pema Chodron says this in this chapter. Being preoccupied with our self-image is like being deaf and blind. It's like standing in the middle of a vast field of wildflowers with a black hood over our heads. It's like coming upon a tree of singing birds while wearing earplugs. So basically, when we're consumed with our self-image, we miss life. We don't notice the sun rising, the birds singing. We think it's all about that, whatever it is that we're trying to manage, and it can take over our minds. And it breeds resentment. As Pema says, it breeds resentment, it breeds resistance to life. I spent many years as an actor managing my image of how I looked, how I presented myself, how I wanted people to think of me as a certain type of performer, certain type of talents, and that kind of thing, my headshot, my resume, all of that. I've talked about that before. And it was exhausting to so minutely try to manufacture myself. And I yearned, I believe we all yearn, to just be seen authentically, to be loved authentically for who we are. And so I made it my purpose, my goal, my mission to seek that out living authentically, which led me into this path of unity and into becoming a minister. And so we miss the depth. We just miss the depth that we ultimately seek when we're so focused on that outer packaging, right, of how people are seeing us and what product of ourselves we're creating. So I have a few questions for you embedded into my talk this evening. The first one is, what parts of yourself could you bring more love to? So what parts of yourself could you bring more love to? I know I could bring more love to the parts of myself that want to be seen for what I do, the parts of myself that want to be treated fairly, that want to not be judged, that want to be loved, that want to be treated gently, that want to be treated patiently, all that, those parts that feel that those needs are not always met by everyone, that I can bring love to those parts of myself. So I want to hear from you. Add those in there, and we'll talk about that at the Spiritual Talk Back after I finish with my talking. We'll get to hear what you have to say. So Pema shares in this chapter about the spiritual practice of Maitri, M-A-I-T-R-I. It's a Sanskrit word, and it translates as unconditional friendship to oneself. Unconditional friendship to oneself. So this goes beyond being a cheerleader for yourself and just giving yourself a pep talk. Like, you can do it. You can do better next time. You can get back up on that horse and go out there. It's more than that. It's total, unconditional acceptance, gentleness. It doesn't always come easy or naturally. It's more common that we disapprove of ourselves, that we become our own critical parent. Those nagging thoughts that show up, and they can become unconscious and just operate within us when we're not aware, when we're not in our practice, when we're not mindful of what's going on within us, and especially when we're in the midst of so much that we're taking in and experiencing and planning and doing, that we can lose sight of how our thoughts are working. And so Maitri, this practice of unconditional love, friendship to ourselves, is not going to come from outside of ourselves. We can look for it in other people and hope that each person is just going to treat us exactly the way that we should be treating ourselves, but that it comes from within. It always comes from within us. We tend to look outside of ourselves to feel better about ourselves. Think about how many times you looked at social media and use it to weigh things, or how many likes you got on a post. Does that make you feel better about yourself? That kind of thing. And not that any of that's wrong or bad. It's just that it's not the true love of yourself that comes from within that we're talking about here. The practice of Maitri, of unconditionally loving yourself. There's a lot of discomfort in life. That's a wonderful thing about the Buddhist practice, is that Buddha talked about this a lot in his teachings, that we're not to struggle against the discomfort in life, but to really find a deeper awareness and acceptance and encompassing of all of it in our circle of awareness, right? So Maitri is not about trying to control anything, your image, your life, other people, that kind of thing. Maitri is about completely letting go, even letting go of concepts and images, just letting it fall apart when things fall apart. Letting the old structures die away so the new can be revealed. Because that's what we're here to do, right? To reveal the truth within us and let go of the old structures that hold limited thinking. So my second question for you to include in the comments tonight is, what ideas about yourself or others are you willing to let go of? What ideas about yourself or others are you willing to let go of? And be specific. Let us know. I want to hear about what you're ready to let go of. I'm ready to let go of my thinking that anybody is against me or that the world is unsafe. I want to let go of that. I don't want to live in that kind of thinking. I'm willing to let go of limited ideas about my own capabilities or my own potential or my own health. I was tired yesterday. What does that mean? Well, maybe I was just tired. I was tired. And I gave myself rest. And I'm grateful to be feeling better today. And things like that. I want to hear from you. So it's just helpful in our spiritual practice to look at our mind, to know what's going on, what's happening in your mind, and to recognize that those thoughts, memories, experiences, emotions are common to all people. If the pandemic has taught us anything, is that the human experience is the human experience is the human experience for all of us through all time. We've all been having these kind of thoughts, positive, negative, emotions, memories, and things that have come up since the beginning of human time on this planet. But there's always the nowness. The nowness is what's always present and where peace is. I always think about Eckhart Tolle. I read The Power of Now. It was a pivotal book for me. And one of the things he says in that book is to listen for the silence. Okay, there's hardly ever silence, right? I hear the air conditioner in here. I probably hear other things if I stop talking. And that underneath all that is silence. And listen for it. And when I do that, I become really present. Not that there's either present or not present, right? I'm present when I'm listening for silence. That's a practice that is useful for me. So in meditation, what we do is we sit in mindfulness practice. We sit and we give space to allow what is there to arise. And be surprised by it. It may be anything that arises. And the kind thing to do, the gentle thing to do, the loving thing to do is to notice thinking, sensations. Notice, just noticing. Getting into witness consciousness rather than attachment, such an attachment that we can get to our experience. Yesterday I was like, I'm feeling a headache, tension, there's this heaviness in my head, and I had all these ideas, and then I said, okay, let's just be with the sensations of that. So I closed my eyes and I just was with it. I'm like, what is this actual experience that I'm having? And I felt like some tension here, and I just was with it and just noticed and just becoming aware of the sensations of it and saying, these are just sensations. I'm adding in descriptions and meaning and what it could be and all kinds of stuff. And it's just this sensation. And as I sat with it, it went away. It went away. So meet what arises in your practice, relax, meet it with a curiosity, a wonder. I'm curious about sensations, what's really going on in my body as opposed to the story I tell myself about it. There's a story that Pema tells in this chapter about in Nepal, that dogs bark all night in Nepal. They're just barking, barking, barking. But every 20 minutes, they all stop. And there's this feeling of relief and just stillness that happens in Nepal. And then they start barking up again. I guess it's just kind of the cycles of barking. And she says that this is how it is when we start meditating, that our minds can be barking up a storm, 20 minutes, and then silence. And it's like, whoa. And the more we meditate, the more we get in a practice, the more space there is in there, the less barking as we continue with our practice. My meditation teacher, the first person I learned to create a consistent practice from Paul Hasselbeck. He said, some of us, we meditate for 20 minutes, and that might be just the 20 minutes was your mind getting quiet. You didn't even get into the good stuff. You didn't really get into the silence. So consider extending your practice a little longer and seeing what that's like with a curiosity. Just a curiosity. Will there be more space? And just being open. And this is just how we begin to notice thinking, notice sensations. The reason why it's so important to love ourselves is because our true nature is love. Our true nature is divine. We call it our Christ nature. You could call it your Buddha nature. And that Christ nature is always loving and always the experience of love. And we just limit ourselves from it by our thinking otherwise about ourselves, anything other than love. And so when we can give that love to ourselves, we open to that greater love and that experience of God. I had so many students who come to my class to learn meditation. They say, I can't meditate, and they give me all the reasons why they can't meditate. And it's like, just loving ourselves and saying, I'm willing to be curious. I'm willing to sit with my feelings and be with them and not make any of them wrong and just let them float by. Notice thinking, notice feelings, notice sensations, and love ourselves into a deeper awareness of the true nature of who we are in spirit. So my last question for you is, what can you do now to be more loving to yourself? What can you do now? So many opportunities to bless ourselves, to give ourselves that space from everything, to be kind and gentle.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.